Hey, everybody, and welcome back to X's for Podcast Live, your live podcast, comic, webcast, video, simultaneous thing for chrono skimming classics, modern marvels, and more. I'm Nico, and you can check me out right here every Sunday at 10 a.m., but also on Twitter, Instagram, Hive, and more at Nico Action. That's NicoAction.
And I'm TK. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, this show, all over the place at XNateXGrayX.
Hey everybody, it's Nathan. You can find me mainly at Twitter, but also like everywhere else on socials at Dazzler AOA. This is like Dazzler in the age of apocalypse. And yeah, welcome. Glad you guys are here.
Right? This is so exciting. I'm always so happy to do this. This live thing gets me going every Sunday morning. It's like really exciting because there's something about the energy of talking about these books in the moment that's so different. And we have such a phenomenal slate of books today. I'm so stoked.
Couldn't agree more. We got through some really great X stuff. We got through some really cool magic and fantasy stuff. I was really excited when we started developing this segment because I feel like right now this is kind of the underdog corner of the Marvel universe. But I'm excited to dig into it because I think it's where a lot of the really cool stuff is. And I think, you know, a couple years from now, this could all be the stuff that's on top, and like the magic stuff could be a little more background.
And I'm glad we get to highlight things like Demon Wars. Peach and team is doing amazing work in there. Damage Control is so much fucking fun. It's like, like Daredevil is so good. Like Miracleman, like, wow, okay.
It's just across the board hits. And, it's stuff like our continuing coverage of Moon Knight, our continuing coverage of Demon Days, titles that we've been covering their whole runs, which, go on over a year now. It's just so exciting to get to see these titles whose creators we've talked with continue some amazing runs. And today we're going to be taking a look at Demon Days, Shield of Justice. Very excited about that. We're also going to be taking a look at Moon Knight 17, Shang-Chi and The Ten Rings 1 through 5, Punisher and Daredevil issues 7 and 6 respectively, Damage Control, the complete 5-issue miniseries, and Miracleman, the Silver Age #2. And we have a number of amazing contributors who we could not do this show without. They, are the show. So I think without further ado, let's get some Demon Days going and bring in some amazing voices.
Let's do it.
Do it.
Man, I love our now back bumper. It makes it so fun. All right. Well, I'm passing the show. Right? I'm passing it. Oh, wrong way. I'm passing it over to Nathan.
Hey. So let us introduce our new faces and voices. Raven, why don't you start first?
Hello, I'm Raven, aka Sanguine Threads. You can find me kind of all over the place. So yeah. Find me.
She is waiting for the Kool-Aid Man to bust out of that wall.
Well, I figure.
Hey everybody, I'm Jonah. You can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at PeakJonah. That's P-E-A-K.
And I'm Tori Sheehan. You can find me over on Instagram at smtori. That's Tori with an I.
Hello, it's me, Steve. And you can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, Mastodon, Hive, maybe some other places at Howdy Duda. That's HOWDYDUDA.
All right, so today we all gathered here to celebrate the glory that is Demon Wars. All right, so I'm so excited to talk about this book with y'all. So, like, obviously, we've got the same team that we always have. We've got Peach Momoko doing the art and the overall story. We've got Zach Davison doing his work with the story and translation, and then we've got Ariana Mar doing her beautiful, beautiful covers on these issues. Like, this team to me is like a holy trinity of Marvel teams. Like, I think I can't imagine the Demon Wars universe with any other creators on it. Like, especially, I mean, Peach obviously is a driving force, but just the three of them gel so well together. And I'm so glad we live in a universe where we get to see these beautiful interpretations of these characters. How do y'all feel about this glorious, to me, team of creators?
I love them. I love that we've gotten to talk with all of them. I love how passionate they are about all of this. I love how different and wonderful everything they bring to this is. Everything shines. It's such a joy to get to dive back into this every issue.
I love that I don't really need to know what's like the bigger stakes of it. Like, I feel like I'm dialing into a piece of a universe, but it's a complete story every time. I'm not distracted by the what ifs or what don't I knows. Instead, like, I kind of savor them. I'm not left to contextualize. I'm left to like ponder excitedly. And that's one of the things that I think a really good AU does. It leaves you excited to fill in the gaps and want more. And that's really what this book gives me in a big way.
Yeah, there's a tendency for specifically our kind of nerds, the kinds who make podcasts in the greater Marvel universe, to like look at each character and be like, all right, but who is this in the mainstream universe? How does it work? Whose baby is this? Stuff like that. And we definitely got deep into that with our Demon Days coverage. But this far into this universe, I'm just like, these are the characters. This is who the characters are. They're great on their own. They are who they are. Sometimes I can notice similarity and be like, oh, this is who this is supposed to be. But like, it has completely ceased to matter, if it ever mattered, who these characters are, because they are these characters. They're the characters in the story, and they completely rule. I love this team. I know that we've all like had the chance to talk to them all, and we all know that they are incredibly cool people in real life. But their work just continues to shine. And every time I open up a Demon Days comic or a Demon Wars comic now, it just kind of blows me away. Like, the first page is always just like such a flex, and this issue kept up that.
I think the thing I always compare this universe to is 1602, and I have found, you know, that was really where I started, was being like, this kind of, I see a similar thing in 1602, or I saw a similar thing in 1602 that I see here, but 1602 was really invested in like, these are the X-Men. This is the Fantastic Four. You will see them doing the things that they would do in the modern universe, but reset slightly, like tinkered slightly for the 1602 universe. Everything is reasonably comparable. I don't say that like it's a bad thing, but what has really impressed me about the Peach Momoko verse is you get kind of a taste of that. You get some ideas of that. You know, you have things like what is obviously Emma Frost as the White Queen, but as soon as you can see something that is very obviously an analog to something in the mainstream Marvel universe, the creators take of it and just do whatever they want, and they stop really worrying about like, will everything translate? Will everything be that character but slightly tinkered for this universe? The tinkers are big, and they make the characters less comparable over time in a way that I think is a net positive, and really creates something that is always organic. It's always what the creator wants, and never a slave to that idea of like, oh, but it's got to be like, what if 616, but here.
Yep.
So you're saying it's basically 1602 Edo period. I love this. I love this comic book. Well, I love the art and the lines and the colors and the everything. You know me. Yeah, I drool over anything Peach Momoko because it's just so beautiful. But it's interesting somehow, between the art and the story, it feels less like, ooh, I'm directly in the middle of the action, which is what a lot of like Western Marvel comics tend to do, is they try and insert you directly in and make you feel like you're part of the action. This feels like you're sitting around a campfire or an evening dinner and just listening to these beautiful tales being retold, and you're sitting there and you're watching it all be painted in front of you, kind of thing. It's so delicious and so captivating just to read that sometimes I forget to read the words and I have to go back. I'm like, yeah, oh God, I was just looking at the art, gotta go. Because the art itself tells this beautiful story that barely needs words to actually give you anything. And then the words also give you a story. So it's like getting two in one, and I love it.
You bring up a good point. It reminds me a lot of, there was a X-Men annual, I forget what issue it was, but like way back when, like around 10, 11, 12, 9, 8, 9, 10, something like that, where it was like almost a follow-up story to Kitty's Fairy Tale, where they had Wolverine and Yana telling stories around the campfire, and then we get that beautiful, like, weird Kate in space arc thing that happens. And this seems very much like that, where it's like you're retelling the stories, you're bringing it into the lore of the era you're telling it as, and you get to reconceptualize the characters.
For me, what I love about this series overall is, comparative to most alternate universe stories and timelines, this doesn't feel like we're placing characters that are the exact same that you're familiar with in situations where, like TK said, what if this was Earth 616 but slightly different? What if, I don't know, Cap wears green underwear instead of red, white, and blue for something? And like that
Oh no, Hydra Cap.
Realistically changes the entire trajectory of history in that universe if Cap changes his color of his underwear. But here we're getting a lot of remapping of iconography where we can recognize this is what the character we're supposed to be relating to and how they might, react in similar situations, but they're completely different. And it feels like, okay, it feels like these are new characters, even if I am familiar with how these characters look and they might share some similar qualities. And as a nerd who has a fascination with mythology from all across different cultures, getting to see so many different characters that I love from the Marvel comics as yokai, and like every issue that comes out, I'm like, ooh, who are we gonna get this time? Who's gonna get their yokai version, the yokaification of them, if you will. And I get really excited thinking about, okay, but this person can work as this yokai, and like how it gets my brain turning, and gets like, I just get so excited to see where the entire creative team goes with, oh, I didn't think of using that character for this. That's pretty great.
And with the choices that Rico maybe isn't even so much allowed to make in this issue, but forced to make in this issue, how do we feel about Mariko's journey through this landscape of the Momokoverse Civil War? Like, we've got all of our big players from our classic Marvel event, brought into the Momokoverse world. How do we feel Mariko's journey is going, especially with this issue? And, how do we feel about some of the big, like, changes too? Like, basically our Iron Man is basically dead, we're assuming at this point. And, where are we going with how are we feeling about that?
It's an interesting choice to have Iron Man be the one who dies and not Captain America in this particular Civil War, especially at the hands of the Captain America stand-in. There's like, it's nice because it makes anybody who's read Civil War not know what side to actually choose, because I feel like we all chose sides a long time ago, and there's one side that's good, and there's one side that is, there's one side that's bad, and there's one side that's less bad. But in this one, it seems pretty clearly that there's carnageization going on, which makes it hard for me to think that there's actually a good side and a bad side, and less that there's intrigues and mystery going on at the hands of Carnage. Like, what does Carnage have to do with our Captain America stand-in? What does Carnage have to do with Kigandoshi originally, and why is it so tightly connected to the Jawbone? Like, are they one and the same? What's going on here? Are we going to get a Venomized? Are we going to get like maximum Carnage in this universe? Very interesting. But the like repeated appearance of Ogin in like bloody fog is not what the coolest visual in this comic. It is just unbelievable. I love seeing that every time. It is spooky. It is so like, I don't know, it's ghastly and I love it. But that and like going back to Kurosaki Mountain at the end of this issue leads me to believe that we're finally going to be seeing, you know, a follow-up to the end of Demon Days and getting to see more of that action. I like the idea that this is going to tie directly back into the story, not just be a completely different story, and that we're continuing the themes that we saw before. So I'm happy with that.
I like that it's like a trades wall in individual issues. She's just like this thing, that thing, this thing, that thing, this thing, that thing. And then it's an arc, and it's like a whole world of Peach, and it's just what you know, but in all new ways, an issue at a time. Really great way to do it. Fly through.
I love it, but I also I hate saying anything negative. Like I love it, but I also find it to be mildly problematic because I know the Marvel universe a little too well at times. So my brain's going, oh, okay, what part of the arc is this supposed to be following? And I start concentrating on where it's supposed to be coming from versus just letting it naturally happen in front of me and just concentrating on that part of the story. So like my brain just keeps going, what in the U.S. agent did, not Cap just do?
What in the U.S. agent?
And I'm just like, no, this is not. Stop trying to find the analog. Stop trying to find the analog. Just pay attention to like the story in front of you because that's really all that matters. It's a different thing. So like, I love it, but at times it's also a little bit difficult because I do know that it does follow some already established storylines. It's just a beautiful repositioning of it all. So I love it. Sometimes it causes me trouble.
I think that was, that's been my experience as well. And these stories are training me to kind of stop doing that. I think Marvel has led us to expect that that's how things are going to be. When we read any sort of alternate thing, look for the analogs. You will see the same story beats, just, done a little differently this time. So you're never too surprised. But this story really goes off on its own, and it has taken a long time. And I feel like I too still fall in the habit because it's been literally decades of doing the same thing. But I think this could really open the way for other creators that are given AU time like this to not just give us more of the same, but a little different for the sake of, comics fans having a little variety as a treat. More like I can put my whole creative soul into something entirely different with some recognizable anchors, and readers will know to take my stuff at face value because pioneers like this did it so successfully that if I can kind of keep up at that same level, readers will meet me there. And I think this could really be the start of where we as readers ask for that and creators are able to give that to us a little more.
Yeah, I definitely think that I was in this world where I thought of Mariko's journey, where it's about discovering this other side of the world in Demon Days. The second part is about how to fit back into the regular world, and that the third part would be how to combine the two. But I think we're really pushing towards the combination of the two worlds a lot faster in this. The struggle that she's having, the sudden jumping out of her powers, the unsurety, the fact that real life feels like a dream, but the other world feels so vibrant and so real. I think we're really on quite the journey for Mariko. And I think that one of the great things about not having read Civil War before is that I get to come in super clean. And I'm just like, I have a general idea of how this went, but I don't have that instantaneous looking towards the analogs. And I think, TK, what you were saying about getting our characters in this AU, but slightly different and pushing more towards just getting a couple of beats along the way as Easter eggs is definitely something that I've been thinking about a lot of the fanfication of our media sources as we get people who grew up like really being heavily involved in fan fiction and fandom before they enter into these spaces where they are the canon creators. And I think that we are going to start to see these stories that are taking place in an AU not be so by the beat, just in a different color, that it's going to start to be a little bit more of, you'll get this one line and you'll get this one interaction and you'll get maybe the same happy ending or slightly different, and it's going to be completely different otherwise. And it's going to be a lot more interesting for people who have been following these characters and do want to see something different from them.
All right. And so as we are wrapping up the segment and going to move on to Moon Knight, so is there any message that you'd want, any of the final thoughts, any message you'd want anybody who's on the fence about whether they want to pick up the series or not, anything to the creators, anything you guys want to put out there? I'm just going to say, if you think and sometimes I'm so jealous of you, Tori, for not having read some of these stories.
Whoops.
Because if you think you read Civil War before and you hated it because you were like, oh, blah, 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 whatever, this weaves Mariko's story into a totally new arc that is, yes, based on the events of Civil War, but you don't have a lot of the underlying grossness of the event that I didn't love before.
If you love art of a high caliber, pick up this book. If
Yeah.
that's what you like, if that's what you look for in comics, if you're reading Doctor Strange Fall Sunrise, you should also be reading this.
And there's side stories. Don't miss the side stories.
Oh my gosh.
Elektra and Miracleman. There's a couple of bonus ones. If you like what you're reading here, there's branches.
Yeah. Elektra Black, White, and Blood is good enough on its own to read, and it's going to be in there.
And I got to mention, like, everybody, like, the Momoko stuff is so popular. This month was basically like a month of Momoko variants, like the eyes of the Marvel Universe through Momoko. So I've ate so much at the comic shop.
You're just like, I'm just gonna roll around in these covers.
Marauders is definitely getting me to read the rest of the series because Peach is the main cover on all of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Peach's art is just so amazing. It tells a story all by itself. Like, a cover can just draw you in and make you want to read a story, even if you've never read it before, even if you're jumping in the middle of a run. I've literally just gone, I don't know who this is. I have to have it. The art is so good, way back when. And I started reading stories and I'm like, oh yeah, this story is actually pretty good. And this artwork is amazing. We're going to keep doing this. So yeah, like, Marvel, invest in people like Peach, please.
Yeah. And I think also, if you're like a person who loves mythologies of any kind, you're going to love everything that you're getting here. You're going to be so interested in the Yokai Files. I think it's really, really fantastic work just across the board.
All right, guys.
Where else are you going to see watercolor painting in a comic?
I'm going to pass it to Jonah for final thoughts, and then we got to go to next segment.
I just want to echo what everyone's saying. This is, if you're on the fence and you haven't read it yet, if you're a fan of mythology, if you love art that's not what you're seeing in other books, if you love very beautiful lettering, I know we haven't really talked about it much this segment, but Ariana Meyer really pushes the boundaries of interesting lettering that really helps tie everything together with everything. And it's every book that comes out for this series by this beautiful, wonderful creative team pushes the boundaries of comics and pushes where the story can go, and I can't recommend it enough. And if you're not reading it, you're only getting half the story. So
all right, that's a commercial, and we're going to Moon Knight. All right, Nathan, you're still in charge, bruh.
All right, cool. So we do have one new voice with us. Why don't you introduce yourself, Juancho?
Morning, everyone. This is Juancho. You can find me on Twitter at Lost in Coco, and I'm so happy to be back on Moon Knight.
All right, so team, like I am so excited for Moon Knight. So first, I gotta ask TK, are you reading Moon Knight? Are you like me, gonna be with Shang-Chi, where you're kind of just along for the ride for it?
It's that second one.
Right,
You know,
cool.
I took a little peek just to see if I could kind of get into it. And Moon Knight has kind of been coming up a bunch in reading that I've been doing for other stuff for the show. So I feel like I'm more ensconced in the character than I ever have been. But I think this is one that I really got to decide whether I'm going to invest, because just looking at this issue, this is not one of those books that you can kind of just like pick up and it's a story you can lead right into. It really does require doing the background work, especially by issue 17, which so few books get these days.
I gotta say, like, if you are thinking about reading anything about Moon Knight, Jed McKay's Moon Knight run has been probably one of my favorite comics of the year. Like top 10 easily. I'm still trying to iron out everything, but it's issue by issue. You may not feel that it tells as much of a story or an arc, but when you go back and read over everything, it really overlays and tells us about the character. So we're here about Moon Knight 17, which, as TK mentioned, it is really rare for comics these days to get 17 issues. So I am pumped and excited that we got this far, and I can't wait to see how far we can get on this series. So Moon Knight 17 is brought to us by Jed McKay, Alessandro Cupio, and Rochelle Rosenberg is our color artist, and VC's Corey Pettit, and that's why live isn't always great.
Same full for same.
Yes, that would usually be an editing thing. But anyway, so it's a beautiful team that we've got going here on this. And we get to the fight between, it's been building up for a few issues, the fight between Moon Knight, a rematch as it was between Moon Knight and Nimian and Grand Mall. So team, where are we at with this issue, what it did for us, what feelings it left us with? How do we like the fight? Like, how do we like this reiteration of it?
I think dude needs more than therapy at this point. He's definitely gone way off that deep end.
Yeah.
He dragged Nimian behind a motorcycle going like 126. There are some rage issues there that are gonna need to be dealt with at some point, but I understand why.
How do y'all think he got into the Midnight Mission? Do you think the Midnight Mission just opened up to let him in? Because he just drives a motorcycle in, and there's like through the front door, like through the wall.
I think the Midnight Mission went, hey, he's coming in hot. Open the doors.
Yeah, that's definitely what it seemed like. I don't know. I felt like this
perspective thing with the moon kind of made like a hole, and because that whole moon crane thing, it's a really good look.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Can we talk about how on the same panel where the motorcycle is going at 126, the Midnight Mission's moon looked like the doors look like eyes, like they're scared.
Yeah, I love that the moon doors always look like eyes, and they usually look like big googly eyes, but here they look like shocked and terrified.
Yeah.
I love that the Midnight Mission is a character that we have sort of had stories in for the past few issues, 5, 6, maybe 10, 12. I forget exactly when the Midnight Mission came in, but it's a character that we don't know that much about. Like, we don't know the capabilities of this house. I in my mind, I think of it as the house from the House of Leaves, but like it could easily be any other way, because as Jed keeps showing us little by little, this house, we don't know what is up to. Maybe Moon Knight doesn't know what the house is up to himself.
Capuccio does a really good job of drawing the eye on a page. Something that we've noticed over the course of this run is that like Capuccio's like really dynamic and energetic style just like pulls your eye to like one thing on the page, and that sometimes leads to us like or me specifically, but sometimes other people, missing stuff that's hidden in like corners. And something that I didn't notice at first when I was reading this issue, but noticed only on going back through, is when they first enter the Midnight Mission, and the Midnight Mission is anthropomorphized as like a grinning skull above the hallway that like my eye just completely missed, because you're following Moon Knight drag Nemian down the hallway as they enter into this like spooky haunted house deal where he's gonna punish them with like hell things. But like, yeah, I really love that the Midnight Mission is this like grinning skull that can appear in its own shadow sometimes, just to show us that, yeah, this is a person, this is a character.
I love the Midnight Mission because, yes, it very much is its own character, and it's like an MC Escher creation had a nightmare baby with like Edgar Allan Poe. And so, yeah, it morphs itself into whatever claustrophobic horror you need. Because, oh my God, the thought of being dragged down by skeletons and just smothered in a grave, like what he did with Grand Mall, or being crushed under the weight of an entire city and just encased like he did to Nemian. I'm like, nope, not going in there. Not ever going in there. That is terrifying. But you can almost see the glee at points in the house. Like there are just certain like little things kind of in the background that you're just like, I don't know if Moon Knight is enjoying this or the house is enjoying this, but this is just bonkers and so unsettling. I love it.
You know, long-time listener, long-time editor, long-time reader, but first time since like issue 2 or 3 being on a segment, something that I really have, you know, listening back to you guys and then getting to think critically, because I read comics differently if I'm going to be on an episode than if I'm just reading them for funsies. Right. And reading this one critically, I was like, man, I don't know how they always get so much out of 22 pages. Because it's kind of like a widescreen comic where at times the action will go on for 6 or 7 pages.
Yes.
It's how much stuff they put in the 2 pages between and how far the art really takes, the intricate detail work. It really is like a marvel to hear I don't know. It's almost like I've been reading the book on tape. I gotta go. I've been listening to the audiobook in my car, and like now I'm actually reading it, and I'm like, I see where they're getting all of this.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
fascinating.
McKay is so economical with his storytelling.
Absolutely.
And really, really good at pacing. But Cappuccio is like a perfect match to him because he's got this just like vibrant, extremely fast, kinetic style. But like we're always getting these little character moments thrown into these like big throwaway battles. These are the pages that I would just like skip over in another comic book, to be honest. Like I want to get to the meat, but the art is like, it's fun, it's energetic. I flip the pages as fast as I can because I'm like, oh man, this is such a crazy action scene, and we opened right in the middle of one this time. But like the moment you get to the nitty gritty, it like slams on the brakes in a way that doesn't feel like jarring. It just feels like, all right, now here's the part where we're paying attention to what we're saying. And I don't know, it always works so perfectly that way.
I like how
it's like the slow-mo part of like, you know, an action sequence. Like you remember in Deadpool where they are fighting in the car and then the car flips and it suddenly goes to slow-mo 3D rotation so you can see all the different pieces. That's what it feels like. It feels like you're just going full speed, and then you have a slow-mo rotate, here's all the details moment, and then right back into the action. That is so hard to do, and I want to give huge props to Rochelle Rosenberg because honestly, those colors, you know, the way it flows, it takes you where you need to go, and everything ties together so well. Like this team is fantastic.
Color-wise,
I
gotta point out for like probably one of the best examples of Rochelle Rosenberg is there's a page right after they pull Nemian into the skeletons, and where Moon Knight's on his throne, and he's like, be welcome, supplicants. Like just the beautiful colors on that page. I'm like, holy fuck. like Rochelle Rosenberg really needs to be talked about like as one of the greatest colorists at Marvel.
Oh my God, yes.
Like she is out there killing it issue after issue.
So
Moon Knight and Tigra at the end. Tigra in that beautiful green dress.
Oh my god! Yeah, Tiger's dress. That's a showstopper. Like,
Yeah.
I love that McKay has made such a big deal out of Tiger in the series, and I love that. I love every Al Ewing and every Jed McKay that is out there that wants to make Tiger a big deal in the Marvel universe. I think that's really cool. But like, wow, this dress.
I can't say too much about how I know it, but there is a story that people tell about how Rochelle Rosenberg turned out an issue in like 36 hours one time. And like all of the reviews were like, what a beautiful issue. You can see where she spent hours thinking about each individual pen stroke. And like, no, she's just literally that competent and capable. It's so important to see a color story come together. My husband, the guy producing the show right now, is a comic book colorist, and like knowing the way colors come together to tell a story firsthand from like watching him color, sometimes it really is like you gotta keep moving. And when you can see somebody has that beat and has had the time to find 17 issues of color story, it's just an exceptional experience to get to read.
It's an interesting thing that I'm realizing a theme running through all of the books we're discussing today is how tight the teams are. And of course, comic book teams as a whole are all to the fact that any single issue gets produced, let alone multiple ones every month, it's all incredible. But like, we're looking at some teams that really, the synergy is next level. They are greater than the sum of their parts. Peach Momoko, Ariana Mar, that whole team really just does fantastic work, as we just talked about. This is another example, I think, where and you see it in the fact that it's successful for 17 issues, which we just don't get a lot of. Yeah. I think the Shang-Chi team with Marcus Toe on art, really phenomenal as well. There's just a lot of great stuff happening. And I think sometimes we do get, in certain books, kind of lightning struck here. This is not something you could not change one of these people out and have the result be more or less the same. It would be radically different.
I totally agree. While I was listening to you talk, I was like, these two teams, like, you couldn't take a single person away from this and without compromising it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to point out, so I was reading some like internet forums about this issue. I always try to get multiple perspectives besides like the ones we get here. And I didn't realize that this is basically Alessandro Capucci's first work, like as a credited artist.
What?
Wait,
like in America or total?
I mean, at least in like America, because I couldn't find anything else other than two inking credits on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and a guest artist on Strange Academy, and that's it.
I knew that this was his first work at Marvel. That is my.
I mean, that's what I found. Maybe there's more.
And seeing him on Strange Academy probably threw off all of our perspectives because we probably all said his name and saw his name somewhere and just like normalized it.
Yeah,
well, he was on Death of Doctor Strange Academy, right? That was the
yeah.
Wow.
And I think one of an Avengers.
A Fantastic Four thing, I think,
maybe.
too.
But yeah,
future story.
What I wanted to point out is adding to TK's point about the synergy of this team. I mean, we know Jet's more experienced and Rachel's been around for a long time, but she grew up like basically I don't know if this sounds wrong, like a rookie artist,
an unknown talent.
Like a rising talent. Like just got in with two experienced creators. Just went to town, and it's incredible how much the art brings out. Mm-hmm. But we also have to point out lettering, because some of our favorite parts here have been the onomatopoeic sounds.
Yeah.
And one of my favorites ever at this run, which is when both Grandma and Nimian are coming out of the like hellscape, and they're like vomiting and all that. That was great. We needed a good bunk here and there, but
yeah, he needed the sound effects.
Yeah, the bunk so much, but the hergs are really good. yeah. I love that. Whenever it needs to be gross, Corey Pettit will always make it gross. Whether it's vomiting or whether it's somebody getting their throat slashed open, it will be a grody sound.
And another page that really got my attention was when, you know how Moon Knight's just like being like towering over both the villains here, and just like out of the corner comes Hunter's Moon. Like he just stood there behind the chair, and like, bitch, I'm here too. And that was great. But the color work was great. How we mixed both Moon Knight's and Hunter's Moon colors, like in one single stroke of light. And I think that's great.
All right, and then as we are wrapping up to move on to our next segment, what are your final thoughts? I'm going to say for me, if this whole next issue doesn't take place and Tigra is not in that dress for the whole issue, like just looking fabulous, she could be just like it could just be art on her for the whole issue. Like if it's not though, I'll be so sad. But I probably won't because I'll be excited to see what they're going to come up with. But I'm looking forward to see Tigra slay at this vampire convention. Literally. And it's really cool to see these two creators that we've talked about so much recently and these that we've covered, Jed MacKay and Al Ewing, take such an interest in the Tigra as a character who has been sort of forgotten a lot since Avengers West Coast and brought in.
Hey, Defenders Beyond.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Defenders Beyond. Al Ewing for Defenders Beyond. But besides, Al Ewing with Defenders Beyond and Moon Knight, it's, she hasn't been given maybe the due she's deserved, or maybe I just think she's deserved because, hell, she's fabulous.
I mean, what two great perspectives to get on that character, though. Like, the universe large perspective and this, like, really tight, just, like, one night party story. And it's going to be a specific type of party, but I mean, I think it really speaks to what I love about Jed MacKay. And though I have not been reading this title, what really could hook me is seeing how invested he is in up close character moments and in giving you really something that goes beyond just like, oh, that was a cool story for that character, but really and Moon Knight's the perfect person for this. Let me get into their psychology. Let me really get into their heads a little bit. He does that work, and I think it's clearly paying off to be in this run and having moments like this at the end of issue 17 where everybody's jaw is just dropping.
TK, I think you're gonna love this run. Like when you just get into it.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I just want to see Tigra that girling for 22 pages.
Damn.
That's all I want.
Oh my God, cute cat girl.
Yeah, that's all I want.
Cute
For 22
cat girl.
pages. So that's my hopes.
Yeah, can we get a Catgirl Tigra lookbook just for like maybe issue 20? Something like that.
Dad, bring in Cat's Eye, bring in Wolfsbane. Let there be like a whole cat and dog party issue. Like, yeah, let's.
Yeah, y'all just want a furry issue, don't you?
I want Dothan
by the
in
way,
Mario
I am so
cat
for.
suit.
I am so effing for.
Why not?
Honestly, my thoughts on this is if you have not read Moon Knight, this particular run of Moon Knight, go back and read this because there is a lot of character development, not only amongst Moon Knight, but for Reese, for Soldier, for Zodiac, for like a bunch of different characters, and especially for Tigra. We get some really great, intimate, up close, personal moments with Tigra that give us so much, and it's amazing and wonderful. I love this book. I love this book so much. It's just gorgeous on every level. I love it. I eat it. I consume it. And I want to see Tigra honestly kicking some serious ass in beautiful dresses. Like that works for me on every level. I love what you guys are doing. Please keep it up.
Final thoughts. I think it's funny that basically that whole Vampire Nation deal was just an multi-level marketing scheme to get more vampires. That was really funny. And but yeah, this is a very special book. And as we mentioned, not many books, especially with lesser known characters, get to 17 issues. And to get basically like 14, maybe 15 issues of the same creative team now, like in 2022, is rare. And it's very special. And anyone who's not reading it should. Most of it's already on Marvel Unlimited, so just go check it out or get the trades. And we hope to see you here for issue 18.
And then
Steve?
Steve, did you?
Yeah, I thought that was just such a perfect end to the segment that I didn't want to say anything after it because that was just like such a great. That's phenomenal. I will say my only final thought is that I was sure that Dr. Botter, Hunter's Moon, was going to come back to life, but now that he has, and now that we know that the Moon Knights don't die, both of them, not just Mark, that means all those other Moon Knights from throughout history that we saw in previous issues were released from service. So maybe there is hope for Mark. Unfortunately, it looks like you go to the Moon Knight hell after that. But
You go to the Moon Knight room.
you go to the Overvoid and serve in the afterlife or whatever. That's horrible. But, like maybe there is hope for Mark out there. Maybe eventually a Moon Knight does get released if they are not allowed to die.
Let Mark go to the white hot moon room where everybody moons you.
Yes. Well,
let's room
put
it
it out
on.
there now. Jason Aaron will write it.
Hey, be careful. He's going to throw in another race. It's going to be Moon Knight on a moon cycle. Like it's going to be like Moon Knight on like a giant uniwheel. And
Oh my God, I can't wait for Moon Corsair.
It's going to be everything. All right, we got to stop it before we give Marvel too many ideas for free. Commercial. Sorry, I really dig the commercials. So we are back to talk about some Shang-Chi.
Ooh.
Right? Look at me and Jonah with our matching.
Look at your
Shang-Chi
props.
sticks.
Love it.
Oh,
Right?
Shang-Chi's kicking me in the face with Jeff the Light Dark.
Yeah. So Kevo has an amazing time pulling these images together, and I love it so much. I could never tell him no. Right? And then he pulls out Jeff the Land Shark and Shang-Chi in the same image from an amazing variant cover. And I just couldn't be more excited to talk about the continuing adventures of Shang-Chi. But I do believe that perhaps this is not my favorite era of Shang-Chi. I really loved the previous arc by some of the same creative team, a slightly different creative team kicked things off. There was a different artist before Marcus To took over and did a beautiful job with the book. But there was like a family energy in the first volumes that here has given way to sort of more like a really much more authentic, much more realistic take on the Iron Fist Houses of Heaven battle, but I don't know. I'm thrown off. What do you guys think?
I mean, one really big thing to keep in mind is like it goes back really far. Shang-Chi is kind of a great example of a parallel but quite different track from a character like Moon Knight, where Shang-Chi has been in Infinity Comics, miniseries, series that seem like they're going to go on for a while, then they get canceled and immediately get restarted. But the character has been in publication now, like popular present publication for like more than 5 or 6 years, with a lot of really interesting stories being told. But they are really segmented and broken down, and there is not a running through line the way there is with a character like Moon Knight. What it offers us is discrete opportunities to have stories that we love and not say the run was bad because, like, you know, there were 8 issues that really weren't my cup of tea or your cup of tea. If this story is not your cup of tea, and I think it might not be mine either, Nico, you know, the last one really was. And so on the one hand, like my love for the previous story is untainted. It maybe means that on balance, a story like this that is only going to have one more issue and then we are restarting again, maybe feels like I just look upon it with a little more negativity because it just isn't attached to those same elements that made me love some of the other stories.
So, like, I only read the first 2 issues of this because
valid.
It wasn't my cup of tea. It's well constructed. It's well constructed. It's a good story. It's just not a story that's gonna draw me in. Shang-Chi is one of those characters who, like, you know, I think until the movie came out, maybe Marvel didn't take as seriously, and a lot of times was used very jokingly. And you know, there's a lot of unfortunate bad racism in some of his early stories from white creators, so it's hard to get into the character. I think this current run is doing something. I'm just not loving what it's doing versus where I did love the last arc and last run. I love the focus on the family. I loved all of that. It's just this one is telling a story that's important, but it's maybe not my story to read.
So I think this series is the very big example of the meme. This is brilliant, but I like this more. This run could be good and is brilliant, but I like the other run more. And it's, I think, part of who Shang-Chi as a character. Way back when we interviewed Alyssa Wong talked about how Shang-Chi is kind of the most lawful good character that Marvel has. And Shang-Chi never does evil. Shang-Chi has a very strict code of good, and you stick to that. But that lies some problems because there's only so many ways you can tell a story of a lawful good character without it just being the same story with a different coat of paint over top of it. I think this corruption arc, or lack thereof, wherever story may go, is a good step, but it does feel like I like seeing Shang-Chi interact with his siblings more, because having him be able to bounce off of these characters that come from different backgrounds and the conflicts that arose from that familial bond and love that he has for them, while struggling to have them understand you don't have to do evil just because our father did evil, was really compelling and interesting, and I thought that dynamic was really refreshing. I mean, hell, we got a new mutant out of it, which how many people could say they got to bring to comics, at least in modern times? So there's nothing wrong with this series, and frankly, I think it is pretty good, but the lack of siblings and the lack of that familial energy isn't resonating with me as much as the other issues did.
And I think part of it for me is that the other issues felt like they told a big saga. They told like an era of Shang-Chi's life where he was pulling together the things that were going to become his sort of like bread and butter of like the storytelling elements that would go on to set the stage for runs to come. And here we're getting a very tight arc in a very specific way. And it brings up a term that we've been using a lot on this show, and it brings up my magic spirit stick, but MC unification. When we talk about the Ten Rings, we're really talking about like the Mandarin. And where that whole thing came from was an attempt to criminally racify the idea of the Mandarin into something less horrifying. And we, the Ten Rings, which was horrifying. And so just different kind of horrifying, And they've continually tried to fix this. And now we're at a point where there are 10 magical rings, which I have to be real. If you came to me and were like, the literal police came and said, you have to be really literal about this. It's 10 giant rings. I would have been like, no, you can't do that. That's not good.
I mean, they were 10 finger rings at one point.
Also bad.
10 toe rings. No,
10
never
toe
mind. I
rings.
don't need.
What kind of other rings?
He said toe
Oh.
rings. But now I'm
And
going
we're
to
going to leave it there.
Well, I'm going to the Video Music Awards thing where it was Jack Black and Sarah Michelle Gellar, and it was the cock ring. It was the Fellowship of the Cock Ring, right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
That's the porn parody is Shang-Chi and the Chin Cock Rings.
Don't give
love that.
Mendacom any more ideas.
Well, don't give Disruptive Films any more ideas. So I want to get your guys' take on it. How do you feel about this new ancient mystical artifact that we are kind of being told is major to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and thus now it's a part of Shang-Chi's canon? How do you guys feel about, basically what I'm going to affectionately call the Phoenix Bands?
I can't take any of these new things seriously at some point anymore, because we've got not only one but two time traveling civilizations in the past started because of time travel. We've got we've got all these splinter realms and demonic realms and all of that stuff. We've got like Marvel Earth being invaded by probably in the space of 1 year, like Asgard, or we've got them invaded by symbiotes, and the Judgment Day event. Like, this all has to take place within the same year on Marvel Earth. So like, for something to be super uber important is just like, okay, everything else is supposed to be important though.
Oh, right. That new creation myth. Forgot. We're going with new gods. We're gonna old gods. You've been demoted. New gods. Come on in. It's very American of us. Yeah.
I mean, I do appreciate that a creator is taking the time to add to a mythology from a culture that most of the writers at Marvel are not really equipped, nor do they have the kind of authentic background experience or anything even tangential or adjacent to it to really start making sweeping and broad changes to that thing where fictional mythologies and cultural mythologies kind of converge. I think a lot of us would feel pretty comfortable, given our backgrounds as white people, doing Thor and Norse stuff, and how Marvel's Thor might dovetail with traditional ideas of Norse mythology, how those things might dovetail with history. There are a lot of ways in which the majority of writers can access those mythologies and experiences, and it feels fine. We don't really bat an eyelash at it. When it's white people writing Asian mythologies, we do start to get into really problematic territory very quickly. So I'm glad that this writer is able to kind of take the time and do some of that work and keep it off the books of other people. I liked the idea of sort of a comparison between the Ten Rings and Excalibur, and the fact that Otherworld got in the mix a little bit. It does sort of give Shang-Chi's whole world a bit of stake in broader Marvel multiversal magical politics. I do think we then start to, though, have questions about, like, okay, how do the kingdoms of heaven fit into, what we know about Ta Lo? Can somebody pull all these things together? Is that important that we do it, or are we just kind of going to do this story and hope for the best?
I can't even imagine how RuPaul would pronounce Ta Lo. So I need to pivot to Jonah, and then we're going to do some last thoughts on Shang-Chi. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to keep covering it. Jonah, so lead us off in last thoughts, and please start us off with your feelings on the Ten Rings.
So I guess I won't say problem, but hesitation with introducing the Ten Rings and being told these are very important is that you're kind of changing history a little bit, and you can, but there's a lot of implications that come with now that the Ten Rings are in play, and that all of these different groups are now know about it and want them. Well, were they trying beforehand to get them? Were they trying to break into Ta Lo to get them beforehand? There's a lot of things that you have to be careful with introducing and telling us this is very important, this is very powerful, and everybody wants it. It's why it's very similar to the reason we talked about on recent episodes, or at least I talked about in recent episodes, why alternate history stories aren't the most popular, because they can change way too much, and you have to think about the implications of, if you're introducing something, what does that change for everything? However, I don't mind this because, again, I think the idea of Shang-Chi going through this corruption story and facing his own morality is very interesting, especially when you have a character that's so geared towards goodness and doing well and being the hero. And I like that. But I don't know if this medium and this kind of story works the best, because I don't know if this story really stands out comparative to other corruption arcs that we've seen in comics. How does this story differentiate itself, and how does this establish Shang-Chi as his own character compared to something like Jean Grey becoming the Dark Phoenix, or I don't know, Dark Beast? I don't know, I'm just naming characters going through corruption things. But the point I'm trying to make is, I want this story, I think I would have been able to really appreciate the story more if this was a little more a personal take on Shang-Chi going through his corruption arc. I think there's plenty of wealth of story to be explored there. I feel like this was a little more safer in order to appeal to people who were fans of the movie, which is fine. I think maybe I'm looking for pushing the boundaries just a little bit more. But overall, there's really, I can't really say there's anything wrong with this art, this story and these issues. There's really nothing wrong. Everything works well. Everything looks right. I think it just feels a little plain, a little bit safe. And if this was a very early season of any kind of reality show, you would be getting red for Phil for being safe.
You said all my final thoughts. Couldn't say it any better myself. Shang-Chi plain and tall.
Yep. I'm over here just still thinking like 10 rings, how are you gonna make them big? I'm still waiting for Jason Aaron to explain how the Phoenix Force got in a shotgun.
Oh, please. They can also, it turns out, combine the 10 rings into one giant ring that can like do portal things. But
also, there are actually 12.
Yeah, actually.
So there's that too. We're really, I will say that again, this is a character that has kind of been put through the ringer through like decades of history.
The ringer.
Strong with me. And so for him to get what, again, a lot of white popular characters get, which is just kind of a boring story in a sea of better ones. I think in some ways, at least it gives me hope that like we're normalizing the presence of Shang-Chi, and we're normalizing the publication presence of Shang-Chi, and some of the stories just simply aren't going to be good.
So he's becoming Wolverine. Okay, cool.
I mean, we're getting to kind of that zone. I think we're testing the waters of like, do we as fans really like the character that much? I think I do. I think if he was in Midnight Suns, I would be stoked. I would wonder why, but I would be happy to see him. It just kind of depends on what the adventure is. I really appreciate that this is honoring a lot of background references to Shang-Chi. I like a lot of the people in his life. The mythology stuff, yeah. I mean, it isn't my favorite, but my hope is that it is doing establishing narrative work that is groundwork for this character to be a Wolverine, a Magic, a character that we can see everywhere and be stoked about it, and that different writers get to have their hands in, and we love seeing their take on him. I see potential, even though this is a little flat.
Absolutely. Nathan, any final thoughts as the guy who absorbed all the knowledge?
So I'm getting like, if you're looking to jump in, wait till it's on MU, because it's probably worth a read for that.
Yeah,
probably.
Or the eventual omnibus that will probably collect everything, and you can read the beautiful family story along with us.
Including issue 6, which is going to close out the arc, and the one-shot from February.
I was about to say, it is of note that we chose to do this now, despite the fact that the arc had not ended, because we sort of felt we were good here. Even if the ending is just blow your mind spectacular, I still think we kind of know what we know about the story now, and now we're looking forward to what is next for this character, and I hope it's great things.
Well, what's next for us is a commercial! All right, Teak. I mean, I in your hands.
I mean, you're in my hands, but I think I'm kind of just prompting you at this point, because we've got an interesting situation here. We are not for the first time, but we don't normally introduce we had not previously introduced Daredevil into regular coverage. I think that is part of this change, is that we will be covering this new run. And you are also covering Daredevil's entire history. You are also wearing a Daredevil hat, a Daredevil shirt in front of a Daredevil background. I think you might have some thoughts. First, I want to ask Nathan, where are you with Daredevil? And then, we're going to go to Punisher in a second, so I'll return to you for that. But let's start with Daredevil. Where are you there?
So with Daredevil, I've been starting to pick it up and read it more, especially since Elektra came in as Daredevil as well. Elektra, love her. This issue So good. I had to get the Peach Momoko variant.
Oh, good choice.
So good.
This Electra, oh my god, so good. But it's something that I'm not as regular of a Daredevil reader, so I don't always like jump to read every issue as soon as I get it. But it's something I've enjoyed when I've been reading it, and this issue especially, amazing.
Nico, what are you thinking about this run so far?
Okay, so I've come to a place where I think when a character has 70 years of history, 60 years of history, 50 years of history, you're kind of a dick if you're like, this isn't really that character, unless they're doing something really out of sorts, unless he's running around being like, I don't think I'm really that into religious people, and I don't stand for the little guy anymore. I don't think you're really missing the point of Daredevil. Everybody gets to like their version of the character. It just so happens that this version of the character, the Zdarsky run, seems to pull from the best of the Wade and the Miller and in many ways the Bendis. And there's nods to Shadowland, which is a very divisive run. I just think my actual main complaint is since Matt has been reintroduced as a Daredevil, I feel as though Elektra's time as the Daredevil has really been kind of squelched down a little bit. I need more Elektra sharing the spotlight.
Yep.
She's not an accessory. This isn't Daredevil and Elektra. It's Daredevil, and it should be Daredevils.
Yes.
But I think this is marvelous. It's an A kind of across the board for me. And this new realm of side characters has only made it better. I just really think they're finding something so special in a character that is already so special to me. And my only dream is that it makes this character more accessible to people who could use heroes like these. And by heroes like these, I mean the incredible creatives behind this book who are fearlessly making a Daredevil title. I can't. Tori, you need to catch up. Tori, my bro.
We need you in this.
It's so I can't. All right, please move on to the weirdest book in Marvel.
We saw a while ago that a thing, Devil's Reign started, and it became clear in the pages of that story, particularly in Elektra, Woman Without Fear, that Frank Castle in the mix in a way we had not, I think nobody had expected. I think by the time Devil's Reign started, we all maybe were thinking that the Punisher might be a third rail for Marvel at this point. Just walk away from it for a while. Right. And instead, they kind of doubled down, did something drastically different, and the Punisher is now inextricably linked to the Daredevil universe, as he is the leader of the Hand.
So evil. He's so evil. I love it.
He is so evil. So in over his head.
Such a fucking idiot. Such an idiot soldier boy following orders. Oh, he's so stupid. Oh, it's so good.
So, Nathan, same question. Punisher, where are you right now?
Well, hold on, let me ask a question. Do you know he has magical powers now?
That's part and parcel of where are you? Because if you don't know that.
I was like, I am decidedly usually not a Punisher fan. Like, my favorite iteration of Punisher is Frankencastle for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Good choice. Cosmic Ghost Rider 2. Anything that makes him not a dude on Earth that vigilante police officers can be into.
Yeah.
Rachel Cole Alves.
So when I'm reading this Daredevil issue, I'm like, what? What is going on with Punisher? Like, it's what I saw in Daredevil 6 might be enough to get me to pick up a Punisher title, which is so like anathema to me. Like, usually Punisher is like, I'm like, oh, like think of like the old War Journal comics from the 90s where I'm like, not my thing. Like, you've got like Punisher and Wolverine just sitting there like drinking shit and killing people. Which, it's fine. It's fine. It's a good time, but like, it's not my idea of a good time. But Where I so I have not been reading the Punisher series, so I don't know what's going on there. So he has magical powers. What?
So okay, you know, I just my only thing I want to add to this, TK, and then I this has been a weird journey with you, and if you had told me this is where the Punisher was going to wind up with magic bullets, I would have said no.
Wait, what kind of magic bullets does he have? Please tell me.
So, I mean, here's the thing. At this point, the Punisher is being told, and it is being said that he is the leader of the Hand. He is very clearly a puppet leader / maybe a leader to a sect. It is very clear that as we are getting into the intricacies of the Hand versus the fist, and then the Punisher is the fist of the Hand, it's so circuitous that I think they're really doing a solid job of showing us like nothing is as it seems, even for the good guys. Nobody really is in control. And there are some incredible elements that remind us repeatedly throughout these runs that our protagonist, the people that that these books are titled for, are not in the control that they think they are. And in Punisher's case, partially that means that he is infused with powers from the beast of the Hand that they all worship. That's part of the fucking death cult that they worship, who is a character that we see in like X books sometimes. And he's like a quipping dad. And then in the Punisher book, he's like an unknowable statue demon. It's a lot.
It's so good. I love it so much. It's so ridiculous. It's so good.
It really, the Punisher, what it has been about, and this is, I think Nico and I kind of agreed to go on probably, I think what many would have said was an ill-advised journey. To engage with the Punisher at this point, I think is a very questionable choice after what the character and the symbol of the Punisher has come to represent. I do believe Aaron and the team that are working on that book, Torrin Grunbeck, too, who is writing Punisher War Journal that's coming out quarterly along with this.
Torrin Grunbeck is writing Punisher?
Wait, and I need to point out that there's an unbelievable artist on the next one, and I just want to get it right. Because
no, please.
It is so unfucking believable who is doing this next issue. I don't even know how to explain it. Yeah, okay. In February, Torrin Grunbeck and Javier Rodriguez are doing a Punisher one-shot. I don't even know how to fucking talk about this.
Why is Marvel making me have to buy Punisher stuff? Like, because those are both two creators that I will like buy anything that they do.
It is golden age, and these stories, the War Journal stories, are meant to slot into canon such that as long as you're generally reading the Aaron run or understand it, the War Journals read just fine.
And it really is about establishing that, yeah, this character is a piece of shit. There's nothing to worship about this guy. The bad actions are absolutely bad. They are not maybe justified. But on top of that, he is a broken human. He is not somebody that I idealize. And on top of that, he is clearly getting gamed by a ninja death cult.
And Akka is clearly his boss.
So
clearly his boss.
We introduce this character in Devil's Reign, this child-esque character that is actually like an obviously very old, probably demon that trained Elektra at one point.
Elektra's stick is named Akka, and I love her.
And she very clearly is in a lot more control and understands a lot more. And so, we automatically know that Frank does not have the control that he thinks he does. He's not the leader that he thinks he is. And on the other side of things, in Daredevil, we've got Goldie, Frank's old, Frank and Elektra's old college friend, who is playing a similar role, telling them essentially, like, we're all just pawns. Like, this is all just a game. Bigger forces than us are just moving us, and I'm here to do things. Nobody is in any control. And I think it is a really, I think it's important. I think it is important to establish both that the Punisher is not a character to love and to follow and to idealize in any way, but also to point out how his humanity is very close to ours, and we can't divorce ourselves from evil people and say, they're on that side, we're on this side. We are all kind of the same and always in danger of losing control and letting ourselves become idiots that think we're in control. And I think seeing those consequences both for Daredevil and Elektra and for Frank is really important.
Agreed. And if this segment did anything to make, because we have a group chat running in the background, and fucking I should have known that 1000% Steve would have some awesome input on Punisher, and Steve chiming in with British Punisher is an amazing Punisher. And
they do love British Punisher. They love it.
Now, Javier Rodriguez, if this segment got anybody to read this book, I'm really psyched. Also, can I just, holy shit, is Maria gonna be like a mob wife now?
Oh yeah, Frank Castle's wife has been resurrected.
And their children can't be resurrected because they keep coming back as worm monster people. Because they've been dead longer than they were ever alive. So hand magic isn't strong enough to give them a full body. And since there's so little DNA left, they're doing the best they can. And it's like hideous body horror. And Frank has to execute his monster children. It is the craziest book ever. And
what in the Submariner is this?
It's all absolutely insane, but it is a really cohesive story, and two very different writers are at the helm. We've got Aaron on Punisher, we've got Zdarsky on Daredevil. So this is not the same cohesive whole as when one writer is writing everything and it's all their plan and their take. It's a dance. And Torn Grimbeck is in the mix too. This is not a simple thing that is happening, but we are seeing these repeated encounters between these two characters. And Nathan, last call. Have we interested you? Have we enticed you?
Is this on for both Punisher and Daredevil? Or
it could be one or the other, but I gotta recommend both.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna give this a shot on MU, see what's on, if it's on MU Punisher, because Daredevil, I've got to say, what Zdarsky's doing with Doc Samson and what the hell is this? Oh my god, this is so cool. He's the idea that Matt's trying to run a prison alternative prison is interesting, and I'm really interested to see where this is going, because just the idea that they're trying to see what kind of ways we could do with prison reform and all of that stuff in a Marvel comic is really interesting. And is Archie going to make some mistakes when he's doing this? Sure, absolutely, but at least he's trying something different, and I love where this is going with the character, and I love that Samson is still in Walter's body.
Love it.
Nico, go off for a second. Come on, this is a big chunk of your world right here.
I'll say this much.
Yeah.
I love when books have beautiful interplay, and if you like what Daredevil is doing, reading what is meant to be 12 issues of Punisher by Aaron, what we believe will have 4 Torrin Grunbeck War Journal bonuses for a 16-issue run. And you really need to read the 3 issues of Woman Without Fear from Devil's Reign to make it all make sense. So if you're willing to invest in this 2 parallel streams of narrative storytelling, I think it is uniquely rewarding for a reader. It's a beautiful way to see 2 very sad, ugly stories come together. And sometimes it's like when a really pretty song has really depressing lyrics. It's sort of like that. And the way these 2 books dance together is romantic. And the agony of Maria Hill. Finally, Maria Hill. Oops.
I was
agony.
That's when you said Maria at first. I thought you were talking about Maria Hill.
No, I'm just slowly melting on air. The agony of Maria Castle, and she's starting to go crazy. And there's this, Nathan, there is this woman in this book The High Priestess.
The
of
High
the
Priestess.
Hand.
Again, another character who's absolutely in charge over Frank, but keeps being like, whatever you say, Master.
She's literally the dark magic nightmare version of Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
And she is the scariest fucking thing in the Marvel universe right now. And she clearly wants to fuck Frank. There's no other way to put it. She obviously wants to fuck Frank.
But why would he want to fuck anybody if he got his wife back, who he's like wanted her since like his
dead
first year?
inside. She is so fucked up from having been dead. She remembers being shot and in a coffin.
Well, hand resurrections usually don't go the way you want them to go.
So that's all my input. I recommend these two books. The Darsky Daredevil is, you know, so high on every critic's end of year list, so high on every critic's best of list. I have nothing that I can add to these brilliant voices that have already said it so much more eloquent. So few people are saying read this Punisher run because horrible things happen to, as Jake puts it. Jake, who is also, you know, on the show in the group chat, literally everything Frank Castle deserves because it's disgusting and horrible. Absolutely. I don't say read this because Punisher is awesome. I say read this because it's high time Frank Castle got punished. And that's what this book is. His punishment.
It's like read it despite the character itself.
Yeah.
Read it because we have to figure out what to do with this character because he does exist and we have to acknowledge that. There's a lot here, folks. I think I couldn't recommend it enough. And, you know, we're at issue 6 for Daredevil. We're like 7 or 8 for Punisher. So not the biggest investment and a lot of payoff, I promise you. So I hope you'll join us. We're going to keep talking about these books as they proceed, and we'd love to have you there with us.
And there is an amazing appearance from the Hand Punisher in the next book we're about to talk about.
Yep.
And I can't fucking wait. But until then, commercial. All right. So
well, hello, Ghost Rider.
Yeah, I had to
You did a little change up.
Had to get a little fancy. He's in the book, so I get to wear it.
Nope.
First off, I gotta welcome my partner in the next room who has not yet been introduced.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jake. You can find me over on Twitter at OMegaSentinel. That's OH Megasentinel. Or you can also find me on Instagram at The Heart Farmer. That's The Heart Farmer, like I will farm your heart with fertilizer and water. All one word. That's me.
I see. I thought it was like you were like trying to like go farm hearts and like Zelda.
Oh, I like that too. Ooh, I like your brain, Nathan.
We are here to discuss, I think, what somehow became one of my favorite minis of the year. Damage Control, written by Adam Goldberg. We've got a few artists on the title, mostly Will Robson and Nathan Stockman. But first off, let's just kind of go down the line. What's everybody's experience with Damage Control?
I mean, I read a lot of Marvel, so I've read them. I don't care. They're just a company. Like, you know, when you're like, the Asgardians, it's like, they'll die to save a world that isn't theirs if they think the world isn't as advanced as them, or they'll throw their weight behind a cause that they believe in. And Damage Control, whether it's a non-for-profit that's ultimately revealed to be a capitalist scheme, or is openly a capitalist scheme, or is secretly Roxanne, or I don't give a shit. It's a company. I don't care. Adam Goldberg, however, is a delicious looking man. And so I read the book.
Yep.
I am the same. I was like, Damage Control, like, blah. But I saw the cover and I was like, okay, cool. These characters are interesting. And then I saw Adam Goldberg and I was like, what? I was like, I actually have, like, kind of love the Goldbergs. Like there's like one single episode that like is the best episode of TV to me of all time, when they go to the restaurant with the family and stuff, like, and like the mother's just like a royal. Yeah, it's perfect. Love it. Mwah.
Is it me? Oh no.
Oh, go ahead, Jake.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It's just the graphic changed, the line changed. I don't know what order we're in.
Go for it.
Oh well, like many before me, I also feel that Adam Goldberg is a fox, and have thought so since the first time I saw Dazed and Confused.
Yeah.
And as for Damage Control, I mean, yeah, they kind of exist in the background. I think they were in the first Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, cleaning up after.
They've been in like all of them at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. Just like kind of an awareness that they're a corporate entity and that they clean up after things. Maybe seen like some covers for the 80s and 90s miniseries. But for the most part, never given them much thought, because I don't really care much about the corporate entities of the Marvel Universe. They are usually evil, the corporate entities of the Marvel Universe. So Damage Control feels like they could go either way. And after reading this, I still feel like they could go either way. They've got is it Viridian Dynamics? They've got a Viridian Dynamics feel. This series is very much a Better Off Ted kind of vibe.
Your world, but better because of us. Say thank you.
Thank you. So that's where I am with this book and this company.
Okay. Raven, what you got? Oh, you're muted.
On purpose.
The miming, the pantomime is amazing.
Raven, you're muted. Okay. I love it.
Directly into
That
the
seems
microphone. It's not seen as polite because I blow out other people's ears.
You're
What
very
is the short
kind.
version of this? Weaponized incompetence is not attractive to me. And this book was weaponized incompetence / failing upwards on steroids in a very unenjoyable manner for a corporate entity who is supposed to be cleaning up and instead has people on fucking hold forever trying to deny their claims, while not being able to seem to figure out that somebody is committing insurance fraud on an ocean-based villain using a fire-based arson. Like, what in the literal fuck is going on here? Holy shit, why? Sorry.
Tori?
I don't know these at all.
I don't know her.
But yeah, basically. But I really enjoy it because I like slice of life things where we see people not punch each other all the time. And I am always loving to see how we can reflect corporations inside of the superhero world, because this all rang very deeply true for people who have to deal with really incompetent people all the time and deal with a management system that does not set up anyone for future competency. If you're going to put someone into a, hey, can you check and see if these people's claims are for real? I would give them a computer or a basic understanding of like what levels are actually worth moving forward. And since they didn't, I really, a lot of this I can't really blame Gus much for, because he was set up for a lot of failure. So I really enjoyed it.
And the fact that he was officed when he was like in the bathroom, like, and people were actively using it, like.
I know I would like a urinal in my office.
I want to know more about this urinal cake symbiote.
Right.
But
who's been eaten by a flurkin at this point, so I don't know if we'll ever hear again.
We got so many amazing guest spots, though. That was our Werewolf by Night. That was Black Tarantula. That was who I'm referring to affectionately as our Punisher. Magneto shows up looking all sorts of what's going on.
There was amazing cameos.
So many amazing
Wolverine.
Cameos.
Dazzler was on the front page. I was like, what?
There was Captain Marvel. There was White Tiger. Like, they had some amazing freaking cameos in the background. Like, I'm not going to take away from that. Just the overall setup for failure. I'm a person who has a bit of RSD. So, like, seeing that kind of failure, like, it's only going to come back onto that one person, and it sucks. And I'm like, you set this poor asshole up for failure, and just I don't like watching it. It's a train wreck that it makes me really uncomfortable.
Okay, and why would you as a company put on their first day the intern in charge of delivering all the mail when the mail is gonna, like, if the mail's not all delivered, it's gonna blow up like something's gonna happen, the world's gonna end. Like,
and on the one hand, I sort of loved the jokey setups and the over the top, this kind of can't be canon stuff that was happening. It was good to have a laugh and good to take a break. But on the other hand, there was actually some potential here, and there was some great writing, and there was, if we had stepped it down a level of slapstick and comedy, this might have really been the groundwork for more slice of life stories, more like in the superhero world, but not of the superhero world stories. And if I had one critique, it is that we maybe went so far into the comedy that I don't know that anything that happened here can be salvaged for future stories without like a little bit of juggling and finesse, which is fine. It's just like when it takes that to get there, I start to have other questions as well.
Well, I think the biggest potential storyline coming out of this is the one that came right out of the end with the Galactus seed. Because, if you read Defenders Beyond, you saw at the end that Taya is still hanging out in our universe. And so I would love to see the further adventures of Taya and Gus.
Her grandson!
Or an avatar of her son. I mean, he's kind of a piece of Galactus.
Speaking of children and parentage, it's just so incredible that Marvel, who, again, we're talking about a corporate entity, getting that Marvel gave Charlotte McDuffie a chance to write in her father's universe in the backup story in issue 1. That's giving a daughter a chance to pay homage to her late father in a way that honors his creations. And it was just really cool. And I very much support the move. Marvel making room for family and making room for sort of the steps to see more Jennifer Grunwalds thrive in this industry. who has worked in special, I think she's worked in special collections now for 15 years, 20 years. She just posted on her Twitter, seeing that work to tie this back to the real world people who have done the work, and seeing that paid forward is the right step.
I honestly, I guess kind of what I was expecting from this was almost like a young Coulson. So somebody who's inexperienced, but overall competent. So like Schlapstick is fine, but it felt like it had real world ramifications, which is probably what really caused my irritation with it. Because I'm like, there are real world implications. How many times have we had a universe die over something so small? And yet, like there are real world ramifications. And honestly, a lot of the actions that were happening would have honestly made things a lot worse for the civilian populace that it was happening around or to. So it's like I was hoping for a young Agent Coulson. And if this goes forward and they do more damage control, I would love to see a more, very human, very, hey, I'm new to this whole thing, but slightly more competent, and make it the comedy of, we don't know. Kind of like what they did with Black Cat and Spider-Man during the death of Doctor Strange, where they had to go through and just take care of just some really basic shit that's on a laundry list for him to do. I would love to see that kind of stuff. That was so entertaining. This was just, I said what I said. I know what I said, and I meant what I said. So yeah.
And I took it a little different than that. I didn't take it as much as him being incompetent, but the company structure overall, just
like bureaucracy.
Like the bureaucracy of it. It was just so.
It's Hermes from Futurama.
Incompetent. Yeah. Like I just felt that the company was so inept that like here is a new associate. Here, we're gonna throw you into this in like zero trainings. Like I couldn't help but feel bad for Gus during all of it, but I was just like, damage control fucking sucks as a company. Like, come on.
We're gonna go into last thoughts now, and I just want to piggyback off of what both of you have said, which is like this was really fun and really funny, and I do really recommend it. I think Adam Goldberg, I'm shocked at what he understands about the Marvel Universe and the characters and the comedy that is inherent in a lot of these people. I would love to see a series that had a writer with a similar comic sensibility, but the series itself was a little more grounded in, if I don't want to say reality, then is grounded in the fact that the Marvel Universe will continue after these 5 issues end. And I would love to see somebody who could write some stories that I could really see contributing to the ongoing Marvel Universe, and not be like really solid references, really good jokes, but so over the top with what they're doing that a lot of it just will never be like referenced or additive to the broader picture. So I have high hopes for Damage Control, though. What about you?
I really want to see Adam Goldberg parlay this into television. Maybe get a Marvel Universe sitcom going. I love She-Hulk, and She-Hulk is brilliant high art, and I think it needs to be celebrated. And I think that represents one form of comedy. We could do something a little bit more sitcom jokey that plays to other audiences without dumbing it down, I think. And Adam Goldberg, TV experience, clearly a love for these characters. He came in and said, I know who these characters are, and I respect them. Because even if there was a sense of bureaucracy makes everybody completely incapable, the Marvel Universe cameos were so spot on. Mm-hmm. And I just think this guy should be celebrated. He really did a great job. Hi,
Obviously you can tell by watching, if you watch the Goldbergs at all, he's grew up in nerd culture, as we want to call it, right? So like the fact that he had such a good idea and grasp of the characters didn't shock me, but I agree. Like if we're gonna get something parlayed into like TV, I would like it to be a lot less over the top and slapsticky. I feel like it was almost like the first time people get a chance to write comics, they like throw everything in the mix, and they're like, I really want to touch this character, so I gotta put this in. and I'd like to see a next time to see what happens when you don't feel that you need to throw everything in at the same time. And then it's just like I'd love to see, like, if this were to become like a series or something, it would be cool. But yes, you'd have to make the company a little less inept and the main character a little more. I mean, he was likable enough, but like to be a part of Galactus is something that you can't really like really bridge over in continuity unless you have like maybe like Al Ewing come and write that story next.
That's what I'm saying. I like this book, although I guess what I was hoping for going in was that it would be more like a frontline, like on the ground, serious,
like the
these
Civil War Frontlines books.
Exactly, or like the
Yeah,
198.
okay.
There was a 198 one, I think, similar to that
Yep.
too. And it wasn't. This was kind of a bit more in like the tradition of, especially like the 1980s sitcom Marvel, not Brand Ech, like Forbishman.
Yeah.
I think Forbishman actually has like a written cameo somewhere in there too. I think that last letter in the first issue is supposed to go to someone Forbish, and I'm like, oh, the guy with the pan on his head, right? So it was fun in that way. It was fun in what it was referencing. But I still would like to see, these characters and this company reinterpreted through the more somber lens, with the caveat that like there isn't a lot of good comedy. I don't think there's a lot of good, like a good sitcom comedy in comic book form. A lot of it takes the form of characters breaking the fourth wall, a la She-Hulk, a la Deadpool. So it's good to see. I like the experiment with the medium. Using, like, drawing from the superhero world to tell a story that is explicitly about comedy, visual and like, you know, storytelling comedy. So, you know, I didn't hate this at all. I think there's a lot of potential. I like what y'all have said about the potential for TV storytelling and adapting this for television. I think this could go in so many different directions. It's got a lot of potential, and it was a beloved project in picking up of the like Damage Control legacy.
Raven.
Oh, I was going to say Tori first.
I mean, for me, I really enjoyed it. I don't have as much attachment as everyone. I'm not looking for everything to tie into everything else or be important moving forward. I have a habit of sort of seeing these miniseries as like little bottle episodes in the grander scheme of things. And so for me, I just really enjoyed, you know, getting to see something a little funny, a little silly. And I think for me, the only thing that I would have loved from it more is to have a character that we're already quite familiar with to be more important to anchor each issue, so that it was less all new characters and then some cameos of things that we know. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun. I would love to see more of this weird, bureaucratic, not very good at their job, is very excited when issues pop out from their own that can make them money in Q4. Like I dig that. So I liked it.
I think for me, the first issue was actually the strongest issue. And I really enjoyed like the way they're like, oh my God, we have to get this mail delivered. Get Nightcrawler. And they got Nightcrawler to help this guy out and get the task more or less finished. And of course, he's like, dude, okay, I got to go. Cool, you're good, gone. And then, you know, he trips and stumbles over the next, you know, problem or whatever. That actually really worked, and it worked really well. I think somebody also said Viridian Dynamics. Oh my God, yes. If they were to do something more like that, I think I could definitely get behind it. The last 4 issues were, I couldn't. But as you saw, there's a wide swath of people who very much enjoyed it. I just happened to be the one that it was not meant for, which is perfectly fine. Sometimes you're just not meant for everything, and I'm totally cool with that.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no quality shaming, you know, especially because I think that's important to recognize that not every book is going to be for everybody, even if the books are great. Yep. Because there's no harm in discussion. And I think that this book brought out so much discussion is why this show exists. You know, it's because this is such an outlier in the Marvel universe. It represents something worth discussing. And I love that we all didn't have the same thing to say.
Fair.
Couldn't agree more. Hope we'll get other books like this to talk about in 2023. But until then, we got one left. Let's go to commercial and then talk about it.
Hi, Adam.
Bye.
All right. We are here to talk our final book of the day. And I could not be more excited to be talking about Miracleman because this is our opportunity to integrate Miracleman into our regular coverage. It has been such a long time coming. And of course, that involves none other than Kevo, our amazing producer who's been killing it all episode. Hey, Kevo.
Hello.
I want to thank you, number one, for producing our show. Number two, for being my husband. And number three, for being up so early the day after your birthday. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I love the show. You guys have been killing it. And I love this job. This has been a lot of fun to do. This is a little bit more of a struggle. But, I'm going to get it down. I'm going to be able to do both. And we got this. We do.
Now,
and here we are. Miracle of miracles.
Now, I believe technically, Nathan, you've been on Miracle coverage before, but I believe you've been on the Miracle of Kimota, which was the Demon Days story.
Yes. Which is so crazy, that one shot with all of the, different realities and, different looks at what Miracleman is. And to jump into these first two issues, and I'm very lost, but I'm digging the story so far. But I am very lost as to everything that's going on.
I've read every page of Miracleman in this run multiple times, and I don't mean this with disrespect to the original creators, but there's times I'm still lost. There is a certain element to this storytelling that's a little bit like jump cut in some really aggressive ways that leave me a little confused too. Now, TK, how much Miracleman have you covered? How much Miracleman have you read? And Miracleman.
Covered absolutely none. Read very slightly more than that because I have been, this is the thing. What viewers may not understand is that Nico will often plop down in front of me a couple hundred issues and be like, hey, just, if you wanted to know who Daredevil was, these would be the ones. And you don't have to read all of them, but I can't really, see the mountain and not climb it. So, we've done it with Daredevil, we've done it with Thor. Miracleman is kind of like my seventh wonder. And I was waiting for the Omni. I was waiting to kind of see where we were going. This all for me, I've always been aware of Miracleman. My partner loves Miracleman, but for me, in this era, it started with that ridiculous Kang issue where it's like the Doomsday Clock thing where he like discovers the Miracleman symbol in time.
Oh, it's timeless.
Yeah. And, that was, I think, one of our first hints as readers that Marvel was going to maybe do the thing. And it's a slow ramp up. It's a real subtle ramp up. But I'm collecting all of my resources. And I think the next 30 days are really going to be when I start to tackle this particular mountain. And I'm very excited because I'm not reading a lot of issues, but I'm paying attention to a lot of what is happening. And, I'm also getting a lot of clips from Mr. Action that are just kind of getting me very excited for what is to come.
Now, I want to say that this issue marks something so significant in Miracle canon. This is the final original issue of the original Miracleman stories. So there has only been so many new Miracleman tales. It's the all-new Miracleman Annual Zero, which featured 2 stories, one by the incredible creative team of Grant Morrison, hey Grant, and Joe Quesada, Joey Q, who really fucking, for all of the famous bad blood between Joey Q and Grant Morrison. I love that I call him Joey Q, like he's not going to punch me in the face.
Hell yeah.
But
all right.
Who would punch that face?
So I would punch my face. So all of the bad blood between Joey Q and Grant Morrison that's perceived, if you were to believe the tabloids, that, they collaborated on this beautiful story together. So spectacular. And then my dream, the people who actually draw my dreams, Pete Milligan and the Allreds, did a story as well. Then, of course, we have Miracleman Zero, which was spectacular, but really should have been called Miracle AU What You Do. And we find ourselves in this...
The Miracle Boogaloo?
Miracle Boogaloo. First of all, Nathan, I am so fucking jealous that you are so close to Mickey's ass right now.
I know, right? I'm like,
yeah.
You are so
if
fucking
anybody else
lucky.
wants a turn, just let me know.
Please. I'm hungry. So I love Miracleman so much, and I'm so excited to get to share it all with you. And this arc signifies something really big. Now, the first Miracleman volume, the Alan Moore era, for lack of a better term to put it as, the original writer era, right, is really about the inability for Miracleman to connect with Kid Miracleman due to the events of the never quite shown at the time, but later referenced and developed incident that took the Miracle characters off the board. And that is ultimately the basis for what is currently known as the Miracleman Omnibus. Now, this run by Neil Gaiman started with the slow reunion of Dickie, the better known as Young Miracleman, the hero who was missing from the previous volume, and bringing him into this world. So this is 2 different tales of a failed father attempting to bond with a child that he let down by running away and becoming a deadbeat, reimagined for the superhero world where the idea of father is elevated from superhero to God. And I think so he kissed him.
That was a panel that you did send to me.
I had so many weird gay feelings about that panel.
So many.
I was really
and I'm the one who's read the most of it. I haven't been called on yet to talk about my Miracleman experience, which is most of the Miracleman.
Well, and it's coming. It's coming.
Okay.
And there was a setup for you as gay men of a certain age.
Certain age.
Yeah, I mean, for
birthday
real.
yesterday.
Yeah, well, listen up, Jillian. So, as gay men of a certain age, we fall into this weird balance
You hear this,
where
Carol?
like there wasn't a whole lot of positive queer representation for us to lock onto.
Okay, I was wondering where you were going with this, but okay.
And you know that this is part of the original run. That this has been around since like 1993.
Okay,
And,
but you said the word positive though. So, but continue.
well, that Neil Gaiman is so well regarded for so much positive queer representation.
He is.
And in Sandman, in so many works. And then we come to this work, which in many cases, an arc needs to be allowed to play out for the ultimate fundamental purpose of the story to be shown. So this could be really positive queer representation. But Kevo, we never read these 2 issues which were out in our original run. I purposely had us stop at the complete arc. Now,
Wait, so they were out?
Yes,
Okay.
these were available for
I didn't know if
purchase.
they were just completed.
No, these were very hard to get, but I believe these were originally like Miracleman 23 and 24, or 22 and 23.
Because I saw the date August 1993, so I suppose that then is when the last one was released. So, okay, fascinating. I have to look something up and continue.
So my question for you then becomes, would you have been okay leaving off on this issue and sort of not to mention Winter Girl, we gotta talk. But
everything about that child is so strange.
She is never up to anything good. But so that is my question for you. How do you feel as the person who's read literally every word that Marvel has ever touched of Miracleman, including the reprinted black and white strips, including the reprinted black and white issues, including the interviews with Michelangelo and Joe Quesada from the purchase agreement? You've invested so much. Would you have been okay with this break-off point? And how do you feel about your experience with Miracleman?
My blurt reaction that I'm sticking with is no. I would not be okay with it. I had to look up some gay numbers before I answered and spoke.
Love gay numbers.
Gay numbers? I love.
Are you looking up when Matt Fielding made out?
Oh, of course I am. Of course I was. I was looking up that. I was also looking up when Sandman ended. I have these charts of pop culture that I like make and use and just use for references for my own frame of reference. And I have the Matt Fielding kiss marked, and I have the end of Sandman marked.
Is end of Sandman May of 96?
March. So you were very close. And the Matt Fielding missed kiss that got so much flack was
from Melrose Place.
From Melrose Place was May of 1994. So this came out the summer before that, which means it was at the beginning of Melrose Place season 2 then, which also means that it was like, gosh.
Amanda had just lost the baby.
Just under 7 full years before the first kiss between 2 gay men on network television is when this came out in comics. All of that is really fascinating frame of reference. I would have been very upset. I would have been upset at the time. I would have been upset if we'd read this, honestly, because I feel like the way that it leaves off is, I mean, it's very traumatic, obviously. And moreover, it's very difficult to know where it's leading. I love and trust Neil Gaiman, especially now more than ever. All the things that he's produced over the course of his whole career and what he's been producing lately, what he did to update Sandman for modern storytelling for Netflix and their adaptation was amazing. So especially because it's him telling this story now, I have faith that I can trust that it's not going to go somewhere upsetting, misleading, queer baiting, because that's sort of where I'm afraid of right now. It felt like sort of a bait and switch for a shock factor, and Avril is actually trying to mislead Mickey for some reason. She's always been kind of shifty, which these two would not. They're not as familiar with Avril. I'm telling you, she's not. She's got her own agendas.
Did I call her Winter? Did I switch her for a different?
Oh, I just thought you were talking about the naked baby.
No,
I'm
I think
talking
I just
about Avril, Marvel woman.
Yeah, I just switched which Miss Marvel character I would. Yeah, no, Avril is so complicated. Thank you for correcting me on that, and please continue 1,000%.
No, totally, it's fine. But like they're all complicated, all these people, and I really appreciated this issue making a little bit clearer the fact that a lot of those kids are miracle kids because it was kind of hinted at. But if you haven't read so far, you only kind of understood what the hint was, but you don't really understand how there's 5,000 miracle babies when I feel like people who just picked this up for the first time are on the same page as Dickie being like, oh my God, what? And you and me are probably like, that's it? That's only 5,000 so far? I was actually expecting like 10,000 miracle babies
A
by now
million
because
throughout reality.
he was giving out his junk last
Yeah, he
we
was just
saw
like,
and was like, anyone who wants a miracle baby, you can just have a miracle baby and I'll give
You get a miracle
you
baby, and you get a
yes,
miracle
kind
baby.
of. That's we're creating a miracle race and we're
jumping on
gonna
the
take care
couch.
of all of you and you know, everyone's here to just live in our utopia and that's so it's crazy. I can't imagine what you guys' reaction to the carnage. I didn't need to get so emotional on screen. Oh my God. This story is so intense. And it's Neil Gaiman. And it's the stories that he weaves.
Oh, do you need to
Someone else
remove your?
no,
Yeah,
someone else just go because like I know who that kid was.
yeah. I
Oh, that
find
documentary. Oh, and the question that popped into my head as I was reading that panel, and it actually made me burst out laughing a little bit, was God, Dickie, what order did you watch those two in? I really hope you watched Peter Pan second,
so. Do
and I
either
really hope it helped.
do either of you know anything about Johnny and the ultimate story of Kid Miracle Man?
No, please tell me because I've been like I am like, what is this? I need to know more of
So
this. Like, please, please, please.
anybody who doesn't want to know should turn off now. But essentially, it is that miracle people, miracle people have an alternate body, and they switch bodies. And after this explosion that essentially killed Miracle Man and young Miracle Man, Kid Miracle Man survived and was just fine and remained in his miracle form and aged to adulthood a super god and never for one moment, yes, miracle whip indeed, and never for one moment experienced humanity again after losing his whole family and was truly a corrupted god and was defeated several times until ultimately Mickey had no choice but to kill him after he
It's
destroyed most of London.
that there was originally a much harder division of the personalities as well. So it's not just that Johnny snapped, it's
Right.
that Kid Miracle Man snapped and sort of was holding Johnny prisoner in
Hostage.
his own
Yeah.
body.
Wow.
And Johnny tried to hold Kid Miracle Man at bay and was going through a lot of traumatic experiences in his mortal life and was put in such mortal peril that he let Kid Miracle Man out, and that's what led to the carnage of London in 1985. And it's from there that Miracle Man stepped up and sort of became this god figure saying,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to put humanity on track, and you can get on board or not, but I'm a god and I just want to take care of all of humanity. And he really just wants to do better because he feels like he failed Johnny so badly by leaving him to deal with Kid Miracle Man.
It's like, what if your son became the Dark Phoenix? And it is just so gut wrenching. And this was like, we got really emotional covering Miracle Man in the first place. It is absolutely like one of my favorite fictional works ever. I have a little Mickey minifig that I like carry around
Yeah.
with me. And
Not quite.
so, you know, the whole thing about this story is it's a complicated tale of responsibility and ultimately what we owe ourselves. And Mickey believes he owes himself nothing and believes he owes the world everything and sees a better miracle child to replace his mistakes with Johnny. Not that Johnny was a mistake, but the mistakes he made with Johnny by
Yep.
creating an army of miracle children, a world of miracles, and then putting Dickie at the center of it. He can prohibit the possibility of the corruptive nature of what came before if he controls everything. And I think it really plays out in a dynamic way that, translates to now. Nathan, TK, I'd love to get your guys' takes because we just sobbed on camera for 20 minutes.
And if I may only add, if that influences your perspective on what happened with Dickie and how Mickey must be feeling about Dickie taking off like that.
Wow, that's wow. Okay. I definitely need to go back and reread this with that knowledge because it's going to definitely change how I read this whole issue.
It's a lot.
I do have one absurd question. Which one was the one that Linda McQuillan married?
She married an alternate universe version of young Miracleman, Dickie. So
Okay.
the one who I actually
So the main one, the red one.
Okay.
The middle one.
They made a really good case for me that Dickie might be a homosexual. Like I could see him being gay then, but the one that's with Linda is an alternate universe Kid Miracleman who I'm very certain loves Linda. She's a beautiful woman and deserves that kind of romance, and I want
fabulous.
that for her.
She doesn't she's fabulous. She kind of I don't know, kind of was hot for Betsy anyway. I think.
Who isn't?
So, right. So let them both be bi. Cool.
Yeah.
The mirror universe.
I don't have a ton of comments. I have a lot of questions, more than I think we can answer here. But I am interested in pulling the camera back a little bit and asking you guys kind of what you think is next for this major acquisition for Marvel that they keep really kind of hinting at. It might be a big thing for the universe that we cover day to day here. And, that it really does feel like kind of a doomsday clock moment. Are we about to see the bringing together of a force that kind of outshines the ones that we saw in Defenders Beyond, for instance?
It goes to the heart of how Gaiman is responsible. So there's that fictional idea that if you need something really impossible to happen, you need something borderline impossible to happen. Because if you can create the possibility of the possibility and create context for the context, that's how in fiction you can suspend disbelief. In a meta way, Gaiman already brought Angela to the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
So why can't Miracleman be next? I think Marvel knows how to play a really good hand really well. I think they occasionally know how to play a really good hand horribly. But I think when it comes to Neil Gaiman, they play it very well. And they have courted him for decades and have always made it clear that they're never going to DC more him. They're always going to Marvel Gaiman him.
And they're never going to give him up?
They're never going to let him down. They're going to turn around and give him Miracleman. And I think they're going to let him finish Silver Age. And then I think all bets are off. Then I think some miracle people are going to show up in the Marvel Universe.
Do you think that Miracleman will get to make more of an impact on the Marvel Universe than, say, Angela did, who was a really hot news item when she came in and then just sort of maybe hasn't lived up to the hype that when she was introduced?
Same question.
Depends on how organically they do it. Are they giving us a world where Mickey steps into the Marvel Universe and is like, I'm your god now? That's going to have some reaction. It also doesn't really feel like Mickey. Mickey's kind of an observer. He gets involved, but he's kind of an observer. I think if Kid Miracleman shows up, if Johnny Bates shows up, yeah, that's going to be an awesome summer crossover because then we need Mickey to save the day. Or Dickie. Or fine, Avril, fine. Oh my God, the worst case scenario is Avril comes over.
I'm most curious to see how all of this shapes out because I think that is definitely going to affect how Miracleman is going to influence the Marvel Universe at large, how the other characters will. The thing that makes me so nervous about the end of this story and this chapter and where it left everything is, Miracleman himself is, as Nico pointed out, pretty selfless and pretty I will do whatever for the world, and not in like a blah way, but he was sort of offering himself to Dickie and was sort of going to probably be like, look, this is a free love utopia society, so like we're not tight boyfriends or anything, but like we can be more if that's what you always wanted. And I don't know what sort of reaction Dickie is going to now have, whether it is triggering something in Dickie that he has repressed, that this is going to unleash something bad. Because, especially as Nico pointed out as well, as gay men of a certain era, we understand that sort of experience better than a lot of younger audiences do, where it's so much easier to be out, and we don't even understand what it was like in the 50s for Dickie. So there's a lot that could come from his reaction here. We don't know. Was Avril planning something, and that's going to lead into something? So there's a lot of dominoes that still have to fall before we can say how Miracleman or any of the Miracle family is going to influence the Marvel Universe. And I'm just so very nervous because this was such a tender place to leave everything, especially for 1993. That's why I looked up all those gay numbers, because like
Gay numbers.
people were brutal to Melrose Place over the character of Matt Fielding and calling him a token, and how his inclusion was so tokenism and ludicrous. And watching that as a gay man in 2020 at 35 years old, I was like, this character's fucking great. If
And
I had
gay
seen
all
this
the time on everything, everywhere.
had at least a major love interest every season, major gay stories every season. If I had seen that when I was a kid, it literally would have changed my life. My life. And so I'm thinking about stuff like that. And I'm thinking about if this had been where a story like that had been left off, and Nico and I as 13-year-olds reading Miracleman and saying, do you think? Do you think? And then seeing that, I don't know how upsetting that would have been to leave that for like
20 years,
30 years almost. And I don't know where it's going to go. I just don't want it to, I don't necessarily need it to be like cutesy and everything in a bow, but like, I also need it to not be gay pain. And I trust Neil Gaiman in general because he's such a queer champion and a queer ally. But you never know, and people do things and write things that they realize in retrospect, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have put it that way.
I think Gaiman's learned, especially if you watch the differences between the Netflix the Netflix adaptation versus the actual comic itself. I think he's really learned in the ways he wants to present things, and has really developed his worldview even further. I mean, who wouldn't since the 90s, right?
Truly.
But like, so yeah, I can see a glimmer of hope. I think if this came out at the time and was continued at the time, I think it would have been a lot of gay pain. And I just hope that it's not gonna be now.
Or would it? And would it have been something gay positive in the 1990s? It's hard to say. And so I'm also excited too, is the thing. Well, some gay pain. I see your finger.
Let's be careful about how much we talk about gay pain and positive in the 90s all in one sentence.
Okay, true. Fair.
But I do want to kick it to TK for some final thoughts. And
Yeah,
then we're
again,
gonna wind this bad boy down.
I am gonna not do my thoughts. I'm gonna do more questions, but I'll make this one simple so we can get an answer really quickly from everybody. Gaiman finishes out what he has had planned. We come to the end. Maybe we come to a point where Miracleman or a bunch of people from the Miracle Universe are in the Marvel Universe. Who is your writer that you would be happy to see carry on the legacy that is being built here?
Neil Gaiman, Kieran Gillen. I'd be happy to see Al Ewing do a lot of really cool stuff. Really great mind. I think we need a strong influx of women so that it's not like, well, there's only so many women at Marvel. Who can I pick from? But, not to have a favorite anything, but like one of my favorite writers at Marvel is Torunn Grønbekk. And I think Torunn Grønbekk would do a really interesting job shaping the women of the Miracleverse very carefully.
I would just say, like, I think if you're gonna, it depends on what you're gonna do. If you're gonna build like a franchise out of this, like you've got to do the Ewings, you've got to do the Gillens, you've got to. I like Torun brought in because she works really well with mythologies that are already established and
Truly.
fleshes out characters. And then I think you got to have like a wild card fun book. And after Exterminators, I just want to see Leah Williams do like a really fun, like everybody like going crazy and died book from her.
I'm not as familiar with all names and everything, but I know the vibe that I would really love, and the thing that I'm really most excited about from these heroes and this family and this world and this idea is how queer and open and that powerhouse of a character and having that translate over to the main universe. So just a lot of queer writers and artists on this title going forward is something that I would really love to see because this is a lot of power to give to some very queer characters.
Ooh, I think Teeny Howard could probably flesh out Avril to an interesting character, like a
Mm.
more interesting character that
And
I haven't seen enough of, so I don't know enough of her to say if she's interesting or not. So.
and could we just get like a black miracle character or like just like a non-white miracle character of any kind? We are just like drowning in Nicole Kidman milk in the miracle verse, and I could use a little more miracle melanin, and it would just bring the book somewhere new. We're talking in very binary terms: miracle man, miracle woman. It'd be very exciting to have miracle person,
Yup.
miracle them, especially for how progressive this title is meant to be, and some very non-determinate miracle them personages would be really cool.
Yeah.
People who are very, I'm male today, female tomorrow, you don't get to decide who I am, I'm always, you know what I mean?
You saw in the first issue that the Miracle Kids wear a lot of different bodies, and
Truly,
so I
yeah.
think that that's something that can be used to explore a lot of really interesting stories as well.
So whatever they do, whoever it goes to, I need it to be as progressive as the ideas that built this story in the first place.
Yeah.
Love it.
Love it.
And with that, longest episode of all time of any show ever.
Worth the extra time spent, though.
Totally. I just feel like 311 on a New Year's Eve. So
I've been to those shows.
That's amazing. I shut the fuck up. We're turning this broadcast off. As always, this is the team that actually like brings you the stuff behind the scenes. Every single voice that you've heard today are the people that make this show possible. That's Steve, that's Raven, that's Juancho, that's Jake, that's Jonah. These Tori, Tori, who loaned herself over from the Billy Club, who really is, the leader of things over on Billy Club with me, and she carefully and cautiously took up her time and was like, okay, I'll do this because it's a mini series. She knows how not to get into it. And I could not be more grateful to all of them. And I want to thank everybody on the screen right now who are the behind the scenes folks who keep the show running. Nathan, TK, and of course, Kevo, our amazing producer. This is X's for Podcast Live. We are loving this format. We're going to keep this thing going. Hopefully, when we say 2 hours, we keep it at 2 hours and a little bit less 2.5. But you can find everything about the show over at xsforpodcast.com, X's for Podcast on social media. And until next time, keep these mutant lights lit, those Krakoan gateways open. Remember, the Punisher has magical powers and you can too. And we'll see you.
Hasta la pista.